If Goldilocks tried 3 beds, then Mama Bear and Daddy Bear slept separately. Baby Bear is probably the only thing keeping the family together. You ain't have to put those people business out like that. You know, the story straight up tells us why Mama Bear and Papa Bear sleep in separate beds. They have very different needs in terms of mattress firmness, and those fancy responsive mattresses that can be soft on one half and firm on the other hadn't been invented yet. There's no shame in valuing your spinal health. The fact that they're secure enough to admit that they're better off in separate beds probably indicates that they have a very healthy relationship built on a foundation of mutual love and respect. Their relationship was just right. One time in 7th grade I was having unbearable intestinal pain, like I could not move at all. It hurt so bad. So I went to the nurse and she sent me home, and the second I got home I farted for legitimately 45 seconds and all of the pain disappeared. A deeply touching story. When you go back to daydreaming after having been interrupted and your brain does a previously on of your fantasy. When you go back to daydreaming after being startled into the real world and your brain has to search through the recently closed tabs to remember what you were daydreaming about. Okay, mood. So my grandmother just told me a joke. Why do women wear panties with flowers on them? I dunno, 'cause flowers are pretty cool. In loving memory of all the faces that were buried there. I just like OMG, grandma. No. I told my grandma that this post got almost 6k notes, and she was very pleased to know that the internet likes her jokes. Shout out to the kid trying to fool me with a fake ID that looked legitimate as hell, except the expiry date was 6969/69/69. Friday is when all the teens try to sneak in the bar. Had another baby-faced kiddo whose ID said he was born in 1897. Stop shaming time travelers. Till in 1915, San Diego hired a rainmaker who used a secret mix of chemicals to attract rain for $10,000, payable if he filled their reservoir. It rained for most of January, destroying bridges, dams, and causing 20 deaths. That was the devil. I mean, they wanted rain. Next time be more fucking specific. I already have a last name. I'd really like to hear the reasoning behind women who won't take their husband's last name. You don't even have to be a lady. There are several. My last name is culturally important to me. His last name is something like Cox or Boner and it's just not worth it. I got a doctorate before I met him and don't want to change it. I don't want to change my name on all my documents and have people assume I'm stealing my own identity in the early months of our marriage. I would rather keep my own last name out of personal preference. I would rather keep my own last name to make a political statement. I want my husband to take my name. It's 2018 and people aren't property. One of my high school literature teachers kept her last name, so we were confused to find she was married to another teacher, and she was like, his last name is Cummings, and we were like, yay, that's reasonable. Kevin, 21. What's up, I'm Kevin. I like to take girls out for a massive plate of barbecue ribs on the first date. I judge them according to how many and how aggressively they consume them. Whoever defeats me in this porcine endeavor shall become my warrior bride, my Boudica. I'll set nations ablaze at her feet, just to watch the flames dance in her eyes. Our love will be beautiful in its violence as a tempest hits the Bering Strait, and should it die, it dies as it began, with a mound of bones between us. An orc wrote this. An orc who knows how to treat a lady. Among those interviewed were Meryl Haggard's 2 ex-wives, Chris Christopherson and Robert Duvall. This book is dedicated to my parents, Ayn Rand and God. Highlights of Peter Ustinov's global tour include encounters with Nelson Mandela, an 800-year-old demigod and a dildo collector. Some examples of why the Oxford comma is generally a good idea. Please, don't let the Oxford comma die. If you were apathetic about it before, I think this will help you understand why it is necessary. On the other hand, these sentences are pure gold. There's a post going around about mixing NyQuil with 5-hour energy, and I'm thinking about the time my parents were both out of town, and my brother was in charge of dropping me off at school, and I must have been 15 or 16, and I was really miserably sick. so he gave me NyQuil, and by the time we were pulling up to the school, I was crashing, so his friend who was driving said, "I have a Red Bull in the glove compartment," and they said drink it, and it'll like even it out. So I did, and I walked into school at 7:30 AM. And then immediately the last bell rang, and school was over. Potion seller, I'm going into school and I need your strongest dissociation. Okay, but here's the thing. I have this task for some Norwegian class, to find a poem that I like, and then read it to the class. And I just found the best poem ever written. Ikjer, Babagulrat, Litten, Stig, Leverai Gulraten Skig, Babagulrat, Henrik Ibsen 1942. Translation. Dear, baby carrot, Henrik Ibsen 1942. Baba carrot. Small, ugly, lives in the shadow of the carrot. Baba carrot. Real literature. It's officially impossible for me to fall in love, because last night at a party drunk me remembered that sober me had thrown 3 fun-sized Kit Kats into my bag with the explicit thought, drunk me is going to be so excited when she finds these, and I don't think any other person is gonna be able to love me like that. But what did drunk you ever do for sober you? One time I blacked out and woke up to find 13 full-sized rolls of Ritz crackers in my bag, because drunk me is also an ideal provider. Testicle torture enthusiasts after a long day. Time to hit the sack. 7,161 notes. I'm just so glad we are all going to hell. A cassowary, a rare emu-like bird, attacks and kills Florida man. Officials say, rip Florida man. Of course, the only thing capable of killing Florida man is from Australia. As it should be. Unstoppable force meets immovable object. If anyone ever tells you that English isn't ridiculous, remember that the reason why we have a silent B in it is because a group of guys got together to standardize English spelling and got to the word debt, which at the time was primarily spelled either det or d, so they basically went, everyone speaks Latin, right? So let's put a silent B in it, like debitum, which is Latin for debt. Problem solved. Also the reason why there is a H in ghost is because when the printing press first came to England, the only people trained to operate it were Flemish speaking, and they put a H after G, because that's what you do in Flemish. They put sh like girl and goss, but the only reason why ghost stuck is because people saw the Holy Ghost in the Bible and were like, well, that must be right. So yeah, English is a really stupid language with some of the most ridiculous spelling. Anyone telling you that English isn't a Bush Frankenstein language is lying. Please stop forcing me to look at fucking Big Mouth every time I open Netflix. This should be considered a crime. I'm glad the portrait of Ben Franklin stayed the same on the new $100 bill. There's something about his slight, tight frown, the paternal hint of disappointment in his eyes and those pursed, sealed lips that seem to say, I don't approve of what you're doing, but I can't stop you from rolling this banknote into a straw and ripping a fat trail of white lightning in the Buffalo Wild Wings handicapped bathroom stall. You goddamn beautiful disaster. Everybody stamp your feet in exactly 1 hour and 2 minutes and destroy Earth. It didn't work. I'm still here. Round 2 in 3 hours and 11 minutes. Maybe it's not working because some people are putting stamps on their feet while some are stomping. Okay, which of you fools were putting stamps on your feet? So back in high school I was in the class for troubled kids, and there were like maybe 7 kids in there. There was one punk kid in it, and I remember when I got my first denim vest he got excited and just stripped a patch off of his and was like, here is something to add to it, and I always thought it was so sweet and wholesome. And now, years later, we were just talking, and he was like, I've always had a thing for you, like goddamn. Where was I for this? Why didn't you tell me? Hello. He did tell you? What did you think ripping a patch of his jacket to give to you was? That's not just being nice.